Guys, Sam here, and I'll be doing the free video for Friday, January 13th, 2023. So, as usual, I just wrapped up the premium video for the good folks in the Gold Room, and it was a little bit of an abridged version. We just looked at the indices and looked at a couple of things that would confirm or not confirm what we're seeing on the charts, a lot of which I shared with you last week in my video on YouTube, so you can go back and catch that one as a refresher. And we're just seeing continuation, really, of the idea. So I'm going to try to be brief with this one and just kind of bring you kind of a central idea. Actually, yeah, let's keep it simple. I could throw a couple picks your way, Nvidia, Home Depot, Exxon, Caterpillar, Halliburton, OIH, NUE, XBI, Zillow, Netflix, WPM, Etsy, but let's actually focus on really what drives markets, right? So we'll start here with the market, and that is going to be the SPY. Now, everyone has this pink trend line here that I've drawn in on their charts. Everyone sees it. No one's special for having it. And here's the thing. This will be the third test of this trend line, right? If we can test it again, which we're very close. It's right around 400 on SPY. So usually trend lines are good for 3 tests. On the 4th test, they usually give, right? So that's point number 1. If it does test it again, it should break. Point number 2 is you're starting to get a couple of signals here that you haven't seen before. So in this case, you're starting to get an upward bias to your daily squeeze, an upward bias to your weekly squeeze, which you do not have since the beginning of COVID, basically. Up thrust on your high-low pro, canceling out those sell signals, which can create a little bit of a whiplash. And then also keep in mind that the put-call ratio is extremely high for this market. So there's the right conditions are set for this next test of 400, and really where I think the battle has to happen is not necessarily at 400, although you should expect a battle there because it's a big level. I think the actual battle will happen between 409 and 410, right? That's the anchored VWAP, anchored to the beginning of last year, and it's just equally importantly these previous swing highs. So a lot of stops, a lot of shorts are going to have stops right here, and I'm fully expecting for them to get nuked, potentially as early as next week. So a couple of other things here, because it's important to understand context, right? There was a test here, there was a test here, there was a test here. What were the conditions of the market during those 3 tests relative to the conditions here? Let's take a look. So if we look at the Dixie here, the dollar, which we spoke about last week, and it certainly played out exactly as we stated it would. The dollar has finally cracked. Now, the level on the dollar, the Dixie, is 103, right? It has to stay below 103 at this point, no questions about that, because that is where you have your little support floor. You put in a bull trap on Friday, and then you snap it lower exactly as expected, triggering the squeeze and continuation of the downtrend. So one major thing that's changed here in terms of the conditions that I just showed you, right? I showed you 3 tests of the trend line and with an upcoming potential 4th test. On every one of those 3 tests of that trend line, look what the dollar was doing. So it wasn't believable, right? Each time that the trend line was being tested, the dollar was going higher and higher and higher, which typically is going to be bearish. This will be the first test of that trend line with the dollar actually falling. Not just falling, but falling below that previous major level, which is 103. So at this point, I fully expect the dollar to get down to about 97.5, with a longer term potential to actually go through the floor here, but one step at a time. So it does have to stay below 103, and this is a major change in the bull's favor towards the probability of breaking that trend line to the upside. If we then look at something like HYG, which is junk bonds. Now, the reason I show you junk bonds, even though it's not something necessarily that I would trade, is because a lot of the risk in the market will hide here, right? It's very easy to fool the stock market. It's very difficult to fool the bond market for a persistent amount of time. So here on the HYG, you'll note that it's above the red line, which is the daily 200. You went up and tested it, fail, immediate comeback and get above, And you're doing so with a trend oscillator that's now neutral, with up thrust on your high-low, and with a squeeze with an upward bias. So here's the game plan. As long as dollar holds 103, I was going to put a little caret there. So dollar under 103, HYGZ above 75, then I think SPY 410 is in range. Okay, so these are closing values. These are daily closing values. So you do have this and you do have this. So I totally think that we can see that 410 level. I don't necessarily, and here's the thing, guys, and let's just close with this, because everybody always says, well, you know, you were bearish and now you're this, and now you're bullish and now you're bearish, and it really isn't about that. What it is trading is all about timing, right? If you want somebody to always tell you that the stock market's going to go up, you can go listen to Tom Lee. If you want somebody to tell you that the stock market's always going to go down, you can go listen to Peter Schiff. Trading is a little bit more nuanced. Trading is just another word for timing, and in this instance, the timing for a squeeze is almost ideal. Right, we just covered the reasons why. You have a very high put call, you have a falling dollar, you have a rising HYG, and you have a fourth test of a trend line coming up, and with all those puts in the market, it just makes sense. However, the flip side of that is the yield curve is deeply inverted, and I haven't gotten my actual trigger for a crash off of the yield curve yet. So up first, and then biblically down later is, I'll just say it as plainly as I can. And I'm going to ask you a favor. If you listen to me or anybody else on the YouTubes or anybody else even at Simpler Trading, put them on the spot to tell you something the way that I'm telling you something right now. Because right now this is time stamped and you'll be able to come back to it and you'll either say that I was right or you'll be able to say that I was wrong. And you can hold me to this. This is not political talk where I don't tell you anything. So here it is as plainly as I can tell you. I think we can rally off of these levels. I think we can go all the way to 410. I think we could potentially go all the way to 430 on the SPY. However, I am not a believer that this is a new bull market. I am a believer that we can go up first to mechanically squeeze out all of those shorts, reset the charts, and then I think once that process has been completed and I see a trigger for the yield curve to come out of inversion, so to go back higher, that will actually be a trigger for something rather biblical. So up first and then major down later is what I still see in the cards. That's for a later video, but I do want to preface it. I'm not saying that this is a new bull market. I'm just saying that there's a lot of folks that are off sides, and mechanically speaking, there has never been a better setup in the last, let's say, 12 months at least to actually do something with it like we have now. So see if you can hold those two ideas in your head. If you have any questions, throw them down in the chat box below. Let us know what you think about our content, if nothing else. And if you really have nothing to tell us, but you want to help us with the algorithm, let us know what your pet's name is in the comments. And then that way the YouTube algorithm gods will bless us if you like our content. So leave us a like as well before you go somewhere else on the YouTube. Always a pleasure talking to you guys. And we'll do it again next Friday. Cheers. Hey traders, this is Sam with Simpler Trading. I want to thank you for watching today's video. Hopefully you found the information in it helpful. If you did, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It really does help us out with the algorithm. And if you want to see us trade live with our own real money and be part of the community, come and check us out at simplertrading.com.